Well, it's that time of the week when we go out to the other coast of the United States, out to the West Coast, out to Hollywood, California, where we talk with Michael Snyder, and he tells us what's happening at the movies. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Alex. How you doing? I hope everybody's having a lovely day or night or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Let's get to the new movies, and I should open by quickly saying that Captive State, which seems interesting, some sort of alien invasion sci-fi, was not screened for the press, even though it seems interesting, like I said. And Wonder Park, the animated film, also was, because of a various set of circumstances, unviewable by yours truly. And I just didn't feel Nancy Drew and the Hidden Staircase. I just didn't feel it. I don't know why, but, maybe because I'm not a 12-year-old girl. Anyway, let's go to the films that are opening that I have seen. 5 Feet Apart kicks it off with the talented Haley Lou Richardson and Jughead from TV's Riverdale, Cole Sprouse in the lead roles. This romantic drama had promise, even with a familiar story of teenagers dealing with life-threatening illnesses and who then fall in love. How familiar is this? Well, there was a little hit doomed teen romance movie called The Fault in Our Stars just 2 years ago. In this case, the two lead characters are super attractive cystic fibrosis patients at the same hospital. She's Stella, like The Fault in Our Stellas, and she's doing everything she can in order to prolong her life with the hopes of a lung transplant to actually give her even more time on the planet. That means being super sanitary, since the disease makes her respiratory system incredibly vulnerable to any kind of infections. He is Will. He's a rebel who might have a death wish at this point in his battle, since he refuses to follow the orders of the doctors and nurses. So when these two guys fall in love, as they will, they have to avoid any physical contact so as not to pass bacteria or viruses to one another. That can be a real buzzkill when you're a horny teen who's been denied the joys of making out, let alone any actual sex. How are they going to carry on a romance when they need to stay 5 feet apart? And that's the crux of the movie. It was pretty boilerplate and emotionally manipulative, but that's to be suspected. It's hard to avoid comparisons to The Fault in Our Stars, which suffered from a similarly soapy vibe. I did like the chemistry between the two leads, and that gave the movie a certain verity and charm and made the experience tolerable until an overheated third act made me want to separate myself considerably more than 5 feet from the theater. Teenage girls who keep shows like Pretty Little Liars on the air will eat this up. Anyone else, not so much. But Haley Lou Richardson, in particular, is a find, and I look forward to seeing her next work. The Highwaymen is a period crime flick that deals with some historical outlaws of the 1930s Depression, and it has the good fortune of having two seasoned old pros, Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson, topping the cast. They do not play the crooks, but their great and effortless chemistry and lovely cinematography and vintage art direction elevate this look at the flip side of the saga of notorious gangsters Bonnie and Clyde. You may remember the award-winning movie Bonnie and Clyde, starring Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway as Clyde Barrow and his partner Bonnie Parker. And instead of focusing on these legendary criminals who had become folk heroes during their often murderous career as bank robbers, The Highwaymen follows the procedural odyssey of the two aging ex-Texas Rangers who are largely responsible for tracking down the deadly couple. Costner and Harrelson are cast to perfection as retired Rangers Frank Hammer and Maney Galt, and these guys are brought into the manhunt, or man and woman hunt, by the first female governor of Texas, a tough gal named Miriam Ma Ferguson, played by Kathy Bates. The FBI and the various police squads have been chasing Bonnie and Clyde all over the Midwest and South, but they failed to apprehend the miscreants, so Hamer and Galt are given a shot. Despite renown in their heyday, the veteran lawmen are derided as has-beens by their younger peers, but with age comes experience and wisdom. This is directed with workmanlike skill by John Lee Hancock, whose movie The Blind Side got an Oscar for Sandra Bullock, and Hancock also wrote the script for one of Costner's best movies, A Perfect World, and directed The Founder and Saving Mr. Banks. The Highwaymen isn't as memorable as any of those. It's not a classic. Still, it's well done and a very watchable piece of cinema, largely thanks to the lead actors, who are kind of a pleasure to hang out with for a couple hours as they chase their prey. Also, this one is coming from Netflix, so be advised, on March 29th, you'll be able to watch it on your home video unit. Moving on, we've got a film called The Mustang, and this is my favorite film of the week. I was extremely impressed. It's a fascinating drama based on a real social rehabilitation program that lets convicts train wild horses. It's set in Nevada, and keys on Roman, a violent con played by Matthias Schoenaerts, who was the hotshot rock photographer in A Bigger Splash, and the modest, noble farmer and love interest opposite Carey Mulligan in Far From the Madding Crowd. But here, he's almost unrecognizable as a down-and-dirty prisoner seething with anger in his heart until he finds kinship with a wild Mustang that no one is able to tame, or at least that's how it seems until Roman connects with him right before the horse is ticketed for the glue factory. Laure de Clement Tonnerre co-wrote the script and directed this powerful examination of a man struggling to find his better self and do something worthwhile after a life of dishing out and receiving abuse. The venerable Bruce Dern is in this as the professional trainer who's in charge of the rehab program and sees a glimmer of decency in Roman as the thug develops his rapport with the Mustang. I mean, this premise screams metaphor. It could have been really heavy-handed, and amazingly, it's not. The Mustang may be a low-budget indie-style movie, but it is thoroughbred drama about the human condition with the backdrop of the American West and these magnificent wild steeds that still roam its prairies in packs. And finally, we have The Aftermath. Considering the talent involved, this movie, based on a 2013 bestseller, should be so much better than it is. Instead, it wastes a trio of really good actors and a compelling setting with a predictable love triangle. Keira Knightley is Rachel, a cultured and elegant woman who comes to post-war Hamburg, Germany in the dark and desolate winter of 1946 to live with her husband, Louis, a British colonel played by Jason Clarke. The city, like many urban areas in Germany after World War II, is trashed, and Louis is in charge of the troops that are cleaning up the town to the best of their ability, though there are still like hardline Nazi terrorists in pockets who would like to get revenge on the Allied victors running the show. These guys, the husband and wife, need a place to live that befits his status as a colonel, so he and Rachel move into an expensive, expansive house that was owned by a handsome German architect and single father played by Alexander Skarsgård. The house is so big that Louis doesn't have the heart to toss the man and his pissed-off teenage daughter out of their former dwelling and into a camp, so he says they can stay, and while Louis is at Allied command, Rachel is at home, and the good-looking German is puttering around the house. I think you see where this is going. You know, I mean, I sure did, and it was a slog. I was interested in the milieu, but the intrigue that might have made for a really good movie was pretty half-baked, like the romance that develops between Rachel and the architect. I mean, it's no post-war Casablanca. It's certainly no post-war thriller like The Third Man, and too bad for that. What have you all been watching?
I've been watching nothing, absolutely nothing. Zero. Zilch show.
Shows. What's captured your fancies?
Nothing.
Okay. Anyway, there you go. We'll come back next week, maybe with better films. I mean, I hope so. You can check me out on Twitter at Culture Blaster and on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page.
And those are Michael Snyder's opinions, and your mileage may vary. We'll see you again next week, Michael. In the meantime, for the rest of the people listening to us 24/7, there's more GABNet coming right up. So stay right where you are.